So a slightly different topic. As Justin mentioned, we're going to talk about fast growth in Europe, or scaling up, as the cool kids call it these days. So my name's Robin. I run a site called Tech.eu. I write about European tech companies. It's basically what I do day in, day out. I'm going to ask all of you to briefly introduce yourselves. Very briefly, who are you, what's the name of your company, and what do you do?
My name is Luuc. I'm the CEO of Tickets, and we make culture more accessible by digitalizing cities and all venues and presenting that in a portal where you can buy and enjoy tickets with your mobile.
Well done. Marc?
Hi everybody, my name is Marc. I'm CEO of Subasta de Ocio. It's a Spanish company where we auction overcapacity in the leisure sector. So we take all empty hotels, hotel beds, all empty tables and restaurants, and we auction them to the highest bidder, thereby converting otherwise wasted resources into happy people.
My name is Hjalmar Didrikson. I'm the chairman of Acast. We try to shape and create the future of podcasting and carry the spoken word in the internet.
Hi, my name is Florian. I would love to talk about dating as well, but I'm here for a more serious topic. It's about let's say, low-interest, high-impact topic. We're talking about insurances, and I'm here as the CMO of FinanceFox. We're a digital insurance broker, and we try to make the insurance life easier for the customer. Yeah, that's basically it.
Well done. So you can tell we have a very diverse panel here, not in terms of gender, unfortunately. And I had to make the same comment, sadly, yesterday, but very diverse in terms of geography. So we're going to talk about each of your respective startup ecosystem, how it's helped you scale, and how it's been challenging for you in a way as well. So the fact that you're already on this panel means you've already achieved fast growth, so congratulations. Now the question is, how did you get to that point? So I'm going to start with Luuc, just because you're sitting next to me. So how do you think you got from going from scratch to fast growth?
Well, it worked quite a little bit, some hurdles to get there. I think the most important is diversity in your team. When we started, I'm quite a commercial guy, so I had a big dream, got funding, but in a product perspective, we didn't do that well job. And then a wonderful CPO, a wonderful CTO came on board, and that then it went faster because the customers were more happy, we got traction, and then it gets easier and easier. So I think a good team, building a good team in the ecosystem is really one of the most important things.
Right. So you've raised funding. We're going to get to the capital part later. Have you raised funding at all?
Yes.
You have? Okay.
Yes.
You guys raised funding as well?
Yes.
And you guys raised funding as well? So it seems to me you can't really get to the scaling fast thing without raising external capital. Do you think that's a fair thing to say? Hjalmar, for example?
Depends a bit on the business model. If you are able to create and convert revenues into profit from day one, then that's obviously a great thing. But for some of us, I guess we need to scale before we can start taking profits. Right. So I think it depends.
So you're saying raising capital is mostly a result of the fact that you're scaling already?
I would add one thing to that, and of course raising capital is not just about raising capital, it's about getting coaching from somebody who has been, seen it before. So I think whether you're raising capital or getting a coach, I think it's important to get coaching from outside.
Got it. Marc, how much have you raised so far?
We've raised around 3 million.
And you're based in?
Barcelona.
Did you have any trouble raising capital, the fact that you were based in Spain?
Well, the capital market in Spain is rough. It's a lot harder than in a lot of other places in Europe. So we've actually raised money. I have my roots here in Holland, so a network in Holland, so we raised money in Holland, which was a lot easier to do than raising it in Spain.
Got it, okay. How many employees do you guys have? How much staff?
So we're around 70 full-time employees.
70. Hjalmar?
We're 50.
50?
40.
40?
We're also 40.
Okay, good. All right, so I think when we talk about scaling and then growing fast, a lot of the conversation is always around talent, being able to attract talent, but also to retain them and to maintain the culture inside the companies. I think one of the hardest things when you scale a company. How do you go about that in your company, Florian?
I think you're absolutely right. I think there are two things for scaling, at least for me. It's the first thing is focusing on the customer, which I think is the most important thing. Because that's the only way you can scale. I I think if you have an amazing team, an amazing idea, but if you're not focusing on the customer, you will fail. And the other important part, of course, is the team and how you motivate people, because there are so many opportunities for great young talents. And at least what we do is we offer a special company culture. So we have that organization system called Holacracy. So we have a system where we are working role-based. So we don't have this classical departments like marketing, like product. For example, we combined these two and called it customer journey, because we are really focusing on the whole journey. Because normally what happens is product builds a product and marketing needs to sell it. And there are a lot of disconnections there. And if you think it through the whole journey, it's the best thing what you can do. So you need also to think in new ways how you organize your company.
It's funny. I had a conversation with another German startup yesterday about this Holacracy thing. Blinkist also employs this.
Yeah, right.
Hjalmar, do you have any special process in place to maintain, the startup culture? And
it's a little bit a cliche, but it's all about the team. Acast consists of 7 founders, and not by a coincidence, 3 of those are techies. So it's really, if you're setting out to scale, you need to build it right from the scratch and get, what you invest up front will reward you tenfold. We had nothing when we started. Now we have 32 million listenings every month on the platform. We couldn't do that without investing heavily up front in technology. So, but it's about setting up yourself, your mindset, your team for scalability. I think that's my advice if you want to make it big.
Sure. Did any of you move to another city to do this company, or did you start it where you actually lived and worked?
I moved.
You moved. You specifically moved to Barcelona to find this company.
I specifically moved to Barcelona.
Why did you do that?
Because the idea was to start this company in Spain, and we saw that this model would work very well in Spain. There's a lot of seasonality in, for example, hotel occupancy rates. So you have a lot of overcapacity that gets wasted. So for us, the Spanish market was very interesting to start with, to learn the model, really put in the effort, put in the 10,000 hours to learn the game, and then start exporting it to other countries.
Right, okay. The reason that I'm asking this is because one of the nice things about Europe is the fact that, and for example, I'll take an example to better explain this, but the guys who founded SoundCloud in Berlin are actually not German, and they had a checklist of things that they thought were important for them to grow the company, and then they just went, should we do Barcelona? No, doesn't have this. Should we do Berlin? It seems to tick all the boxes, so we'll just do it in Berlin then. So that's the nice thing about Europe, but then you guys actually did stay in your local ecosystem. Do you feel like you could have built this company anywhere? Or do you really need to be in Amsterdam, for example, to build tickets?
I think you can build it anywhere, but it's important to start with some people who you can trust and we can really go fast with. And then your hometown, with all the network of money, of resources, of coaching, is of course easy to go fast in the first stage. So now, beginning in Berlin could have been working, but I think it's difficult for our kind of companies.
Hjalmar, do you have any offices outside of?
Yes, we started out in Stockholm, and that's where we also launched the product first. Then we quickly expanded to London, which was our bridge to our ultimate goal, which is the United States of America. So right now we have 10 people on the ground in Manhattan, and we're building up on the West Coast as well. America is really leading the way on the content space.
Right. So let's talk about that. For the startups in the room that might be just about to open offices elsewhere, what's it like scaling internationally, especially in different continents? What kind of challenges do you face?
I think this is like Machiavelli wrote sometime way back. You have to get your own people into the provinces. So what we've done, one of the co-founders started up the offices, first in London and then in New York. And now, of course, we have a trusted team there. But without the technology, we would be nowhere. So when we come to talk to the publishers and independent podcasters in the US, they think we're coming from the future, but we're coming from a little place called Stockholm. It helps having Spotify as a role model, of course. But I think, in the end, the technology is what will scale, but the culture is what will make it happen.
Sure. Does FinanceFox have any other offices outside of Berlin?
I think FinanceFox is part of this fintech movement, and fintech has some boundaries because in every country you have different compliance requirements. It's not like SoundCloud, you can just scale it up. In every country you go, you need to really focus on what are the local requirements, and there are always workaround solutions you need to adapt to also work in this country. Sure. So it's an opportunity because also you are protected from large international competitors. Because you really need to focus on one market, build a team in this market, which also understands the market and the needs of the market. On the other side,
plus you also have to deal with regulations and local laws.
Exactly.
Cool. Marc, do you have any plans to expand internationally?
Yes. Basically from Spain, a lot of Spanish startups, they go to LATAM. It's a sort of a logical jump. It's the same culture, the same language, but a lot of them actually also fail, and very few of them go to north of Europe. And one of our plans actually to move to the north. It's somewhere where we have 10 nationalities working at our company, and mostly European, so it's something where we feel comfortable there. But we aim to maintain headquarters in Barcelona. It's an amazing place to be, and it's very strong in mobile. Barcelona has the Mobile World Congress. There are a lot of mobile developers, a lot of small businesses focus on mobile marketing, everything that has to do with mobile, and mobile is 70% of our business. So strong.
I lived in Barcelona for a while, and I agree. It didn't used to be that way, but now it's a great place to start a company, I think, at least. Luuc, ticketing space is obviously quite, I'm not going to say saturated, because that sounds negative, but it has, you have a lot of competitors, and some of them are really big. Why did you choose this market? Why do you choose to enter this space?
Well, there was a simple reason. It's such a hassle to get your tickets, to get availability, and to get in with your mobile. It's an old-fashioned market which is dominantly offline. The museums and stuff are so old-fashioned that you have to stand in line, you have to print tickets. They say, well, this is not the dream, to get more people enjoy culture and making them a little happier by. Is
it really that much of a problem still?
It is really a problem. Oh. And of course not with the big concerts, but with the museums, the attractions, the zoos. It's printing. You have to wait for 48 hours before confirmation. You're already back when you're doing a city trip, for example.
Did you do any research if this is a problem everywhere, or was it just a problem here?
No, we did certainly research around the globe, the major 100 cities, and we also have allocated our city rollout based upon that.
Right. In the same vein, podcasting is kind of a, it's not a new field. At the same time, it feels like there's still a lot of room to grow. But what makes you different from all the other tools out there?
Look, I mean, podcasting has been around for a long time, and especially in the beginning, it was the techies. It became a bit more wholesale recently with the advent of Serial and some other big podcasts. The ecosystem was really broken as far as we could see. So a podcaster would have to go to a lot of different providers in order to get this stuff to do. Now, with our ecosystem, you basically use one tool to create, to get statistics, to distribute, and to monetize. So that's what we're doing. We're creating a one-stop shop, and we're doing it globally. So I think that makes us pretty unique. I think we're already today the biggest commercial podcasting infrastructure around. Right. So, and we hope to be able to scale it.
By the way, we use you guys for the Tech.eu podcast, and we're really happy.
Great, thanks.
Well done. So what is it for the entrepreneurs in the room? What are some of the tips and tricks that you can share about how you scaled, like the number of customers that you have and the number of revenue that you've been able to scale? I don't want to call it growth hacking because it's a shitty term, but are there any techniques that you employed to get to the point where you are, Florian?
I think a lot about nowadays is about the technology. So for example, we're using Salesforce, which is a big advantage for us because on the one hand, we are super flexible in all the countries to modify the code base. On the other hand, we can scale super quickly. And what I learned also from the banking sector is that technology, in a lot of times, is a hurdle also for scaling the business. Scaling, finding the right people, we already talked about that, so that you have a setup, an entrepreneurial setup for every country. I think we talked about internationalization from day one. So you should build everything from day one, keeping in mind that you want to go global and have a big vision. and I think that helps a lot. Also, if you're a small startup, 10 people, think about the future. I think a lot of amazing products out there. So, yeah.
Cool. Marc, same question. Any tips and tricks that you can share?
Yeah, there's so many, and I think one thing resonated with me yesterday, a presentation of Gary in the main stage that just basically was saying, work your ass off. I mean, it work like crazy, 18 hours a day, and you just go on. And I think that's what resonated for me. There are many tips and tricks, growth hacking, whatever you want to call them, but the most important thing is that you need to put in the effort and you need to work for it, and you need to every day try to achieve a little step forward. Because basically what we're aiming to do is really, we're reaching for the stars. We want so much growth, we want to have so much impact, and we want to change and disrupt sectors. You need to chunk it up in very little steps, and every day try to improve a little bit.
All right. Luuc, same question.
Well, I think is listen so carefully to your customers. What we do now is that we go multiple times a week, go on the street with a GoPro on a helmet and film how they respond to our product and make it better. And so the most important key measurement in our company is Net Promoter Score. How happy are they with our product? And it's so interesting that you think you know everything in your company about your product and what they like, what they don't like, and you don't. Every time they come back and say, Jesus, we have to do this and this and this, and that as the beginning of making the product better.
That's really good advice, because honestly, I see a lot of founders in Europe making that mistake of not having that feedback loop in place with users and customers. I was on a panel yesterday about how startups should deal with journalists. And I always wonder, like, how much time do you spend thinking about this? You know, how do I get publicity from journalists, rather than, am I talking to my customers enough, my users? Am I getting enough feedback? I feel like that's all. I think that Europe doesn't really do well yet. We'll get there at some point. But I mean, we've proven, and then we talk a lot about the positives of being in your local respective startup hubs. But let's talk about the negatives. What are some of the challenges you faced, for example, in Berlin? Or let's start with Hjalmar. Are there any challenges of starting up in Stockholm rather than, say, New York or the Valley?
I think to some extent it's a positive, but sometimes your advantages will be your drawbacks. But I mean, our challenge will be to keep our culture, to evolve. We have a founding team of 7. You know, we need to evolve in our different tasks and roles, and we need to make sure that we stay on top and keep and attract people that share our mindset globally. Now, we won't spread ourselves too wide, but it's really the English-speaking world we're talking. So that will be our greatest challenge, no doubt.
Sure. But as I said, like, Europe is capable of innovation, but it seems like we're still kind of limping behind on some certain regions. Not just the Valley, but also China. Like, it's crazy the numbers that you see there. But Europe is capable of producing really good companies. We've talked about Spotify, SoundCloud. My friend Stephanie's doing sex toys, innovative sex toys with Mystery Vibe. FinTech is obviously a hot space as well. So, Florian, what do you think? Does Europe have an edge when it comes to FinTech globally? It feels that way, especially if you look at the UK.
So. I think it's definitely different to sex toys, I guess. Because I think it's a super local market. When we talk about finance, every country has its own needs. So I definitely think it's an advantage to start here. To start in Europe, I have been on a lot of panel discussions, you know, advantages of US versus Europe. I don't see that, for at least not for FinTech. I see it's a great place to start in Europe. We have an amazing people here, amazing chances, so I don't think we need to look always to the US. I think we can build amazing stuff here and go vice versa.
Sure. Luuc, it's a straightforward question. Are there any downsides of being in Europe?
Well, there are downsides being in Amsterdam, of getting a better and better hub for also the big ones, like the Ubers and stuff. And they have such big money bags to get techies.
Right.
So they're now hiring people for 180,000 euros. So there's a downside of being in a tech hub. For example, Katowice, they are in Emmen, of all places. But there are also good techies there who just want to stay there. So Being in a hub, it's nice to have an environment
Right.
of coaches and stuff, but there's also a downside.
Yeah, sure. I mean, if you're in a startup hub where there is a lot of activity that comes with the territory, right?
Yep.
You're going to have competition for talent.
Yep.
And I think in Europe, I think we can all agree that there is a lot of technical talent available, no question. But it feels to me oftentimes that if you really want to scale a company, to hire managers, sales, business development people who've done this before, right? Who've been through this startup thing before. It seems like it's a little bit harder to find and retain than technical talents. Is that a correct statement, Marc?
Well, yes and no. I mean, it's a challenge. I think if you put your mind to it, there are enough ways of getting these people here and retaining them, for sure. I think it's mostly in the minds of entrepreneurs that we block ourselves, that we think... I think that the entrepreneurs in the States, they think differently. They have a can-do attitude, and we see a lot of blocks very often, and we should not, because there are very little blocks. And just work with the sector. Some things you have, and some things you have to bring in.
Right. Hjalmar, any thoughts on that?
I don't think so much about Europe or US. I mean, it's all about people, it's all about the individuals. And as you say, I think it's in our mindsets. And we can find role models from all over the world. But we've got to make it happen here.
Yeah, for sure. Right, well, we're out of time. The fact that you are on this panel, I've said this before, the fact that you're on this panel already means that you have achieved fast growth, so congratulations for that. I hope it continues. Thank you so much for sharing your experiences and thoughts, and best of luck with the companies. Cheers.
Thank you.